Welcome everybody to our weekly Oneg Shabbat. I hope everyone is doing well. This week's Oneg Shabbat also we celebrate the holiday of Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat is the holiday of the new trees, the month of Shvat that we're in, which is the beginning in Israel of the springtime. It's very important to make this mention that although in Israel it's still pretty cold outside, it's still the winter, but Tu B'Shvat represents the beginning of the spring, when the trees start to take root and the flowers and the fruit trees just begin to blossom. And although one may ask, well, how important is it? Why is it so important that the fruits begin to blossom? There's no fruit on the trees to eat yet. It won't be too much later in the spring, Passover time, or the summertime. The answer is that we believe that once the beginning of something good is happening, that will lead to something greater and greater. So too here, the beginning of the new season, even though it's a very, very small beginning, the beginning of the blossoming of the fruits and all the trees will lead to a much greater blossoming later on. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Ashoreis, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech, Malchei Amlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Ashoreis, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem Malachei Ashoreis Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seizchem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seizchem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seizchem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mihi Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In this week's Torah portion, we read about the Jewish people leaving Egypt. And finally, when they left Egypt, and all the great miracles happened to the Jewish people, there's one more miracle left to happen, and maybe possibly the greatest miracle of all. And we'll explain why that was shortly. So we know the Jews left Egypt, and Pharaoh, after 3 days, decided that no, he could not believe that his army of slaves, the Jewish people, were gone, and he decided to retreat and chase after them to try to capture them and bring them back. Now again, this is after all the terrible, terrible plagues that happened to the Egyptians and to Pharaoh personally, the loss of his own firstborn son. Yet After a few days, he said, you know what? I want those Jewish people back as slaves. And he chased them, and he cornered the Jewish people. On one side was the Egyptian army, the other side was the Red Sea. And the Jewish people didn't know what to do. And Moses turned to Hashem and said, what should we do? And God said to them, just go into the sea, you'll see what happens. And the Jewish people started walking into the ocean, and suddenly a miracle happened. The ocean split up. The parting of the Red Sea, the splitting of the sea, and the Jewish people walked through the sea with great joy and great praise of God, of Hashem, for saving them. There's such a miracle that happened. And as the Jews were exiting the sea and the Egyptians were entering the split sea to capture them once again, the waters closed down and the Egyptians drowned. As Pharaoh looked upon the side, the only survivor was Pharaoh, looked and saw his entire army now drowned in the Red Sea. And the miracle of God was only for the Jewish people, not for the Egyptians. This is a great moment in Jewish history because commentators say that the entire world knew about this. How did the entire world know about the splitting of the Red Sea? So the commentators explain that it wasn't just the waters of the Red Sea that split, but every water, every ocean, and every river split. God changed nature for that few moments of time that all the waters in the world would split. So even if you were in faraway land and there's a river in your backyard, that river split, and people would ask, why is this happening? And people would talk, and they found out it was because of the merit of the Jewish people that God did this miracle. So besides the great miracle that it was also a miracle which showed the entire world the greatness of God and His love for the Jewish people. Pnei Shabbos nekam b'la shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad heshmi yahanu kel am yuchar Hashem echad ushmo echad l'shemu seferes v'lesila chadodi likras kala Pnei Shabbos nekam b'la likras Shabbos Gurwin Healthcare ki mekar habiracha meirosh mikedem nesucha sav maseh machshavas chila chadodi likras kala Pnei Shabbos nekabila lo sei v'oshi v'lo zikami Mate shochachi umate mi b'hog yachsu ani yami v'nivnesa ir al tila lechadodi likras kala Pnei Shabbos nekabila v'awi b'shalom atares bala Gamberi na'uvitza hala tochem mune yam sigula Bawi kala lechadodi likras kala Pnei Shabbos nekabilam. Getting back to the holiday of Tu B'Shvat, another interesting point the commentators bring down is, why do we care so much about trees? A holiday about trees and fruits. And it's important to note that the fruits that we celebrate on this holiday are specifically the fruits from the land of Israel. These special fruits that God promised to the Jewish people when they enter Israel, pomegranates, olives, grapes, dates, figs, wheat and barley. These are the produce of the land of Israel. And part of this holiday is for us to remember and think about that we long the day where the temple returns and we return back to our homeland in Israel. And certainly at the time we're living in the pandemic, when things are hard for us day in and day out, but we ultimately trust Hashem and we know that His ultimate promise to return us to the land of Israel and live in the days of Messiah, days of Mashiach, will one day come, and they will come sooner than we ever imagined. Adon olam asher molach v'terem kol yitzir nivra liyes nasa b'chef sokol azai melech shemo nikra v'yacharei kechlos hakol Levahada yemlach nora v'aya v'hova v'oyiyeh b'sifara v'oechar v'yein sheni v'amshila l'hachvira v'lireishit v'lisachlis l'ha'od v'ha'misra v'okeli v'chad go'ali V'sorach li b'yeis nasa v'onisi umanosli Minas kosi b'yom ekra v'yahado avkidruchi V'yeis ishan v'yahira v'yimruchi giviyasi Hado Shem li v'lo Everyone should have a happy and healthy Shabbat and a great weekend. We'll see everybody next week.